Hi, everyone. It's Lisa Norell. Welcome to May 14th. This is our LinkedIn live stream, and I'm so glad you're here. Friday showed up so quickly this year or this week. I couldn't believe it. And I think it's partially because I'm just coming back from a very nice vacation, and my sense of time has gotten a little bit warped. I'm really glad you're here for the next 40 minutes, so sit back and enjoy this great discussion we're going to have today with Bruce Turkel. We're going to look into how do you build your personal power by building powerful networks. We're going to unpack what we mean by personal power. We're going to talk a lot about what makes a very powerful network. How do you personally go seek out a great network that not only works for you, but where you can expose your superpowers as a leader. Remember that we are taking your live questions, and we'd love to know where you're from, so make sure you put it in the chat. But first, let me step back and tell you why this topic is so near and dear to me. About 3.5 years ago, when I was going through a divorce, I woke up in the empty home I used to live in, and I was actually in a sweat. It was 5 a.m., and I looked around and I said, okay, what's going to happen if I break my foot and I fall down? No one's here to help me. I'm all alone, and I just feel like I'm listening to the sound of my own voice, not to mention talking a lot to my cats. So I realized isolation is probably one of the worst after effects, not only of divorce, but also of this pandemic. And I said, what can I do not only to save my life, my own life, but to help others? And that's when I realized that building powerful networks started with building my own personal power back. So I built a love army, and I had 7 friends for each of the 7 days of the week. And I would check in with each of those friends. So I had Patrick, who I would check in with on Sundays, Jamie on Mondays, Bettina on Tuesdays, just to tell them my state of mind, body, and spirit, and to make sure I got through those difficult early days of the divorce. So as we divorce ourselves from the pandemic, we need to build those similar kinds of networks and support structures for ourselves so that we can be a better version of ourselves. So what better person to join us but another friend who has been dedicating his life to helping others and really serving in powerful networks. Bruce Turkel is not only a good friend of mine, but he's also a fellow 2-time author and lover of all things beach. He is with us today from Key West, Florida, and the author of one of my favorite books, It's All About Them. Bruce, so good to see you.
It's good to see you too. And, you know, I could tell immediately you just got back from vacation because you were just glowing.
Well, thank you. I want to hold on to that feeling for a very long time.
It suits you. I like that.
Well, I guess I should say aloha then.
Sure, aloha.
Yes. And I want to remind people who are watching, we'd love to know where you're from. And Bruce and I are going to dive right in. I was looking at your website, Bruce, and you have been cultivating communities as well for the last couple of years. And you've also been a member of mastermind groups for, gosh, I don't even know. How many years would you say now?
Well, the Strategic Forum, which is a corporate group in both Miami, where I live, and also in New York, that we just celebrated our 15th anniversary. I'm in another group that's probably been around 20 years. So for a long time, but I realized it goes back further than that. I grew up in a small town. People don't know it's a small town, but I grew up in Miami Beach, South Beach. And it was the kind of place where you knew everybody. And I still have friends I went to elementary school with. But I realized one day that I can get things done because, and this is the kind of funny line we use, I got a guy for that. You know, man or woman, it's irrelevant, but whatever anybody needs, yeah, I got a guy for that. And when I ran my business, and we would bring in people from other places to work with us when we were interviewing, and they would need, whether it was a mechanic or a dentist or a gardener, and they would always say, oh, go Bruce, go ask Bruce. He's got a little guy for that. And it never dawned on me that that was just part of it certainly was my social makeup, but it was part of how I got things done. I could just pick up the phone and call someone. My friends all call me the mayor of Miami because I tend to know everybody. And it's because I'm always putting people together. And it wasn't until I read The Tipping Point, Malcolm Gladwell, where he talked about different kinds of people. And one of the types of people was a connector. And he said, list how many names you know or people you know with these different names. And I forget the number. If you know 150, you're a connector. And I knew like 500. And so it just came naturally to me. Never dawned on me to either systematize it nor to monetize it until I needed people that I didn't have in my network, and I needed to learn how to expand it. And so that's where it all came from.
And speaking of network, guess who one of our favorite network members is? Susan from Bluffton, South Carolina is joining us today. We love Susan.
Oh, hey, Susan.
Susan connected us.
Right.
So this is where the circle gets really exciting and powerful. Is just Susan and I have been collaborating going on 10 years.
And it goes deeper than that, Lisa, because I met Susan because someone in our strategic forum works in Susan's company, recommended me to her CEO, who introduced me to Susan, who introduced me to you, and then I did some things with you, and then we had dinner, and it just keeps the snowball going downhill, just gets bigger and bigger.
I like to think of it as the butterfly effect, right?
Fair enough. The butterflies perhaps are sweeter.
We like the butterflies. So I'm with you. It's just so exciting. And we're really glad Susan's here and want to remind people we're taking your questions. Let's dive into those questions because we actually, thanks to LinkedIn Learning, who is now promoting my weekly live streams, we're getting questions days and weeks in advance now for this session today. So we have, why don't we start by establishing some common definitions? What do we mean by personal power?
Well, the way I look at it, it is the ability to get things done. One of my personal mottos is GSD, get stuff done. I don't use the word stuff, but you get my drift. And so personal power is the ability to get things done. The personal part is that it's about you, of course, but it's also your choices of what it is you want to get done. Different people want to accomplish different things. Your power is the ability to do that.
Yes, a lot of power has been temporarily stolen from us just because of the lockdown measures that we all got through the last 15 months. And for some of us, we've had to rebuild our personal power in new ways. As you shifted during the pandemic, how did you bolster your own personal power, Bruce?
Well, one of the things that I wanted to do, I actually had been working on it, was to write a new book. And my publisher wanted really the sequel to the book you're holding. But I'd already written 4 other books on branding and marketing and building businesses. And I didn't want to write another one. The book I wanted to write was how people change their lives. And so I went out and I started interviewing people. I thought it would be people in their 70s and 80s who would change their lives for either good reasons or bad reasons, but had crossed the chasm and had been successful in their new lives. But as I interviewed people, I found that there were people much younger who had done the same thing. And I continued to do that to compile what I needed for the new book. Well, while I was doing that, our collective world stopped because of COVID. I can't say that I was prescient enough to know that this was going to happen. And I would be writing a book about the subject that would be on everybody's lips, including my own, which is how do we change? How do we transform? How do we pivot? How do we metamorphosize? Use whatever term you like. So people knew I was doing this, and people would call me and say, you know what? My life has just been turned upside down. I can't go to the office, or I can't see my family, or I can't go outside, whatever it was. What do I do about this? And I had all these instructions from people who had done it successfully. So it didn't have to be what I thought was the right thing to do. It was, look, Lisa, here's a bunch of different people. I think you're going to really like what they have to say. Find what works for you. Back to personal power. It's not mass power, it's personal power. Find what works for you. And so that's where all of this started to come together for me.
Yes, I felt the same way. I had to make some big shifts and do it quickly. And so I found my personal power by surrounding myself with some of the world's top coaches, authors, and CEOs within the Marshall Goldsmith 100 Coaches community. And they, for about 4 or 5 months, scheduled 3 to 4 meetings a week and said, okay, we have a standing meeting at 10 a.m. Eastern time, and you could come or not. So it was really a great form of therapy for me, and to trigger some fresh ideas and how I would go from live meetings and keynotes and workshops to this new virtual studio from which I am live streaming today. So without those people, I couldn't have gotten the confidence, I would say, and the personal power. So it's great to have those types of people in our lives. But, Bruce, too, I get a lot of emails and messages from people who run networking groups, and they seem to have suffered the most because they rely so much on the quality of the adult beverages, and the venue needs to be sexy. We're going to do it at a rooftop in Washington, D.C., right. And it's going to be really sexy, and we're going to have music, and people are going to, get to know each other. Maybe we should distinguish here for our group what the difference is between a networking group and what you and I are talking about today, these powerful peer networks.
Well, as I understand it, a networking group is simply the opportunity to be put in front of people that you might not have met otherwise. And everybody is there with the intention, not of selling anything or buying anything, but looking to see how people's contact lists can overlap and be helpful. There's the old saying, people used to say, it's not what you know, it's who you know. And then someone else said, it's not what you know, it's not who you know, it's who knows you. But I think today, because of networking, because of the technology that we have to reach out to networks, whether it's LinkedIn or Zoom calls or whatever it is you're doing, today I would even change that saying further. I'd say it's not what you know, it's not who you know, it's not who knows you, it's who you know knows. Because I have a very large network. I put my network at your service, all of a sudden your network has grown exponentially, especially if I'm willing to say to whoever it is you want to meet, hey, so-and-so, my friend Lisa is awesome. Here's what she does. And I think you should get to know her, and I'm endorsing her. I'll tell you just a very quick story. At one of our groups, at the Strategic Forum, at the very end, when people are done with their presentations, we always ask them, how can we help you? So one of the guys there, he was a guest, and he says, does anybody know someone at Bascom Palmer? If you don't know, Bascom Palmer is probably the leading eye hospital research center in the country. It's in Miami. It's attached to the University of Miami, and it's attached to Jackson Memorial Hospital. And so he says, does anyone know someone at Bascom? Well, at the time, I ran my ad agency, and Jackson was my client. So I said, yeah, I know people there. How can I be helpful? He says, my daughter has some eye problem. We're trying to get her an appointment. Our eye doctor can't figure it out, but they say it's a 3-month appointment. Do you think you can help me get there a little quicker? I said, I don't know. Let me make a call. So I call the president, the medical director, who was my client, and we were friendly. And I tell him the story. He says, sure, Stacy, my assistant, I'm going to put Stacy on the phone, and Stacy can help you make an appointment. Great. So I get Stacy on the phone. I tell Stacy the story. Stacy says, wonderful. Tell your friend to call me. I'll make the appointment. Done. It was a 3-minute phone call. Plus I got to talk to a friend, right? Well, a week later, and I don't even know this other guy, really, the guy who asked for the help. But a week later, I get a call from him, take the call, and I say, so how's your daughter doing? And he starts to tell me, and he starts bawling. He starts crying, which I got to tell you is a little bit uncomfortable. I don't know why. And he says to me, I spoke to Stacy. We got the appointment. I was able to take my daughter in the next day. They did the exam. It turns out she had a virus on her optic nerve. He said it's easy to cure once you know what it is. It's a certain antibiotic. It has to be injected a certain way, and she's fine. But they told us if she had waited 3 months, she would be blind. Wow. So look at, I just got goosebumps. So, and this happened years ago, but look what happened. Someone I didn't know asked for a favor. It took me 3 minutes. and I got to chat with a friend who felt good about doing me a favor, and we saved this little girl from losing her vision. That's what the power of a networking group. That's why I say it's not who you know, it's who you know knows. Because he didn't know anyone there, but I did.
Right.
And
yeah. Well, that's a great story. And I see you, have a vision of you now kind of with a Superman cape on.
Thank you.
Right?
I like that.
No, I mean, that's a great story. And we see that all the time. We had a member in our marketing growth leaders group who was going through some very difficult career transition and made it very clear to his employer. And one of our other members swooped in and said, I get calls all the time from recruiters. I'm not looking for a new job. And said, hey, Eric, maybe this new opportunity over here might be of interest to you. And within like 30 days, this member had a dream job because of this referral. Right. So, and I'm not saying, mileage varies for sure. However, this has happened so many times in our marketing growth leaders group that it's uncanny. And just, again, they know people who know. And recruiters contact me regularly saying, hey, would you help us place these people? Or, we have someone who has a job opening. And I say, well, I'm not a recruiter, but again, the miracles that come out of the group cannot be predicted. Agreed. So it's exciting. Would it also be fair to say in your groups that it's not really about networking per se, it's about rolling up your sleeves and getting into the weeds on some challenging business or personal issues?
Well, the line we use in the group is, if it is said, it is done. So if you tell someone I'm going to make the phone call or I'm going to do whatever, you do it. In fact, we often say, stop whatever it is you're doing and deal with these things first. So it is a matter of commitment. But to your point, it's also a matter of vulnerability and transparency. That you don't, what's that old saying? You don't GET until you ASK, right? You have to let people know what it is you need. They say, if you're looking to adopt a child, you tell everybody you run into that you're looking to adopt a child, because somebody knows someone whose mother, sister's, milkman's, uncle's, brother's daughter is pregnant and is looking to give the child up for adoption. But nobody's walking around with a sign that says, hey, I know someone who's got a kid. Does anyone want them? And whatever it is that you're looking for, all you got to do is ask people. All you have to say is, hey, do you know anyone who can help me with this? Or do you have any idea how I could do this? Or do you have any knowledge or connection or whatever? In our groups, we say that we share 4 things. We share our contact list, just talked about that. We share our experiences, we share our talents, and we share our skill sets. So for example, 4 years ago, when I sold my business, I also needed to sell the office building. Well, my father had always been my real estate advisor. My dad was a developer. I know nothing about real estate. And when I bought the property, he helped me do it properly. But sadly, my dad, actually, June will be 10 years that my dad passed away. So I don't have access to that level of both help and information. But someone in our group was a real estate investor. So I called him up and I said, here's what I want to do. Can you give me some advice? And he said, why do you want to do that? And I give him all my reasons, most of which were wrong, because what do I know about real estate? But he showed me, do this, don't do this, always sign this, never sign that clause, always, all those little things that, again, for him was no-brainers because he did it every day. For me, it was like reading Greek. I had no idea what these things were. I asked the question, I got the answers, and it was a great result. So always look for those 4 things. As I said, contacts, skill sets, experiences, and talents. And if people share those with you and you, in return, share those with others, your personal power just magnifies exponentially.
And yes, it brings it out. And we got a request from Natalie in Boston who sent in a question. Natalie wanted to know, hey, I'm making a career move. I'm going to leave my old job in operations. I want to become a project manager. What do I look for to make sure that the network I join is a powerful network? What should I be listening for, or where do I begin?
Well, let me suggest that the best way to both get into a network, to participate in the network, and to be looked at as a good member of the network is not to be looking for what's in it for me. I'm not suggesting that you're doing this just purely altruistically, but the idea of how do I know it's going to be a good network that's going to get me something is not going to find you a good network that's going to get you something. The idea is, where can I be of service? Where can I be of value? I would look for a network perhaps that doesn't have a lot of people who do exactly what you do, because you need that those various opinions, those people who do different things. I would look for a network where there's a lot of activity, and most of the activity is not necessarily big group activity, meaning all 20 members or 500 members do everything together, but there's subgroups and mini groups, because that's where you get to move around and have more intimate interactions with people, which is when they want to help you and when you want to help them. I would suggest that it's probably the quality of the activity, because if you start judging by quality of person, I think you're not going to find the group that you want that's either generous or ultimately has the people you like. We don't know who are the people who are going to be most useful to us, or we can be most useful to, because we don't know who other people know. We don't know what other people do. In one of our groups, we were doing an annual dinner and we wanted to bring someone of significance. And so at the meeting, we mentioned, look, we're really looking for someone whose name matters, what they're doing in the world matters. And so one guy raises his hand, successful businessman, and he says, what do you think about a Supreme Court justice? And we all think he's kidding, right? Oh yeah, that would be great, but how the heck are we going to get a Supreme Court justice? He goes, oh, Stephen Breyer was my roommate in college. I can call him. Who knew? I knew this guy for years. We were good friends, but I had no idea about that. And if I had vetted my group based on that sort of thing, well, I never would have found this out. But he was willing to make the effort. He was willing to help everybody.
And it worked.
And it worked phenomenally well. I got to ask him questions, and my wife and I got to sit with Stephen Breyer at dinner, and it was just a once in a lifetime experience to have a conversation with a Supreme Court justice. And it was right after Citizens United. So I was very interested in what was going on. And it was fascinating.
That's so great.
And because they were roommates in college. But you could never have known that.
Yeah. And I also what I've learned now, having cultivated the marketing growth leaders community, is that it really, really matters to ask the person who runs the group, what's the purpose of the group? Tell me what it's about. And if they lead with, oh, we have all these cool events, we have all these good speakers, that's not going to serve you. I mean, we literally have a ritual in our group, and we read our group purpose at the beginning of every meeting. And we say it out loud. We gather and inspire marketing leaders to share ideas, best practices, and create a forum for breakthrough innovation. We are committed to raising our level of personal performance, and we discover and deploy new strategies to help us thrive in the midst of digital, social, political, and organization change. So everybody knows what the purpose is, and we actually tell people before we agree to have them join the group. Because if they disagree with the purpose and they're not passionate about growing their, making that leap from order taker to innovator as a marketing leader, they're probably not going to be a great contributor or receiver in the group. We've got a question from Abdallah in Saudi Arabia. Bruce, what is the purpose? Great question.
I think
thank you.
On what you just said, find out what the purpose is. Yeah.
And I also, if you're going to join a new group, it's totally normal for the leader of the group to facilitate a discussion around the purpose of a group. It doesn't have to be etched in stone. And it's even more exciting when people in the group help to create the purpose statement and establish the norms of the group in advance.
We do two other things that you can copy if you're into best practices, because success leaves clues, right? So you should see what it is that other groups are doing. One of them is that we end the meetings with thank yous. Thank yous are the currency of our organization. So we go around the room People raise, or we go around the Zoom, whichever, people raise their hands, and then they'll say, so I want to thank Susan for introducing me to Lisa. I want to thank so-and-so for giving me a business lead. I want to thank so-and-so for whatever. It's not, I just want to thank you for being such a nice person or for having such a beautiful smile, which you do, but it's about the things people did. Now, two things happen. The folks who are doing these things get the attaboys and attagirls and feel good about it. I actually keep score because I'm a little bit competitive. And there's a certain person in the group that I want to get more thank yous than they get. But the other thing is the people who have become dead wood aren't participating for whatever reason. They're like, why aren't I getting any thank yous? Well, because you're not actually helping people. So that becomes the currency of our organization. And even if a meeting is running late, we do not miss out on the thank yous. And what happens from that as well is that guests see that we are sincere about helping one another. We're not simply sincere about what's in it for me. The other thing that we do, and I do this in all the groups that I facilitate as well, is that I insist that all of the participants schedule one-on-ones with one another. And in a group of 10 or 15 people, that could take you a lot of time. Now it's easier because you do it on Zoom. You don't have to meet for lunch. And we have people all over the country and actually all over the world, so they can do it electronically. But have one-on-one meetings where you get together and get to know each other. We had what I called in our group an intimacy committee, where we scheduled events that had nothing to do with the business of who we were, but had to do with whoever the host was sort of opening their lives. So we had one guy who owned this big, very successful guy who owned this big, beautiful boat at the marina, and he had a cocktail party on his boat. We had another woman who was a member of her golf club, and she did it there. I did something at my house where I invited people and cooked for them. It didn't really matter what it was. The idea was, let me show you who I am. Let me introduce you to my wife, my husband, my children, my cats, in your case. I already put down crazy cat lady because you were talking to your cat.
I am a crazy.
We know
Steph
that.
is my wonderful producer. Steph is always reminding me that my cat Muji deserves to have his own live stream because he is usually making a ruckus as soon as we begin the live stream. So today he's on his best behavior. Thank goodness.
Be careful what you wish for.
Yes. And you're bringing up an excellent point about these intimacy groups, because we also schedule something every quarter where it's let your hair down, bring your favorite adult beverage. We had a person yesterday, Gary Ware, join us from San Diego, and we went through a series of playful exercises to spark creativity and connection within the group, and it was really successful. We have a comment from Shuba. And Shuba, I will say here, what a great idea. I miss the humanness of everyday life. I know. And Bruce, let's not underestimate the meaning of intimacy. It's into me see. It has a meaning, and these ties we have with people, not just the loose ties of bumping into the bank teller, but the intimate ties that were really frazzled over the last year and a half. This is the time to really rebuild them and find creative ways to fortify those, because they are really important to our mental health. So I hope, Shuba, you're building some intimate ties and rebuilding them after the pandemic as well. Let's talk for a minute, Bruce, about member diversity. I want to share a story. I'm going to change the names to protect the innocent here. I was a keynote speaker for a while with a CEO peer group, and I would travel from city to city and, speak. And I think they did me a favor because I just didn't fit into the group at all. I found that 90% of their top speakers, easily 90%, as well as the members, were all males over the age of 50 and all white. So what are you doing to ensure diversity, not only diversity of thinking, but diversity of the people in these roundtables?
Well, in the strategic forum, which is the big corporate group, we noticed the same problem a number of years ago. Most of the people looked like the founders. And although one of the four founders was a woman, other than that, we pretty much looked the same. And so we made a conscious effort to bring guests who didn't look like us, didn't do what we did. So it wasn't all just professionals, certainly not all male, certainly not all graying hair, certainly not all white, but to start bringing different people. And to your point, it was diversity of a lot of things. Diversity of culture, diversity of gender, diversity of experience, diversity of age. We really did a kind of blanket diversity. Now, this was a number of years ago before this became as kind of popular as it has become. Since then, we've sort of doubled down and we've made an effort to run a series of workshops on diversity, on microaggression, on all the different things that people are talking about. We have asked our members of color to help us with the organization of it specifically. So it wasn't simply us saying, well, here's what we think, us meaning the original founders, here's what we think you should do. The other thing we did was we made sure that our board was made up of different people, because the 3 out of the 4 founders, I was one of them, we were on the board. And we had a guy come in and he did personality tests of all the members. And one of the things he pointed out was, you 3 guys are all type A personalities, and you need to let some of the other people who might be a little bit type B, a little more reticent, to step up and be heard. So in our board meeting, I brought that up, that, hey, we brought Vic in and he gave us this insight, and we need to get some of these other people on the board. And Phil, one of our founders, who sadly has since passed away, Phil said, well, if they want to be on the board, why don't they just join? Phil, that's the point. They're not going to, because we're all type A and they don't see that there's an opening for them. And of course he says, who the hell is type A? What are you talking about? You could not have been less self-aware than Phil was. But
boy.
So I said, you know what? I'll volunteer. I'll step off the board, but I'm picking who comes on the board. And I picked a guy, very nice, very smart, all those things, but never opened his mouth because he couldn't push back when Phil was dominating the room or Seth was dominating the room. So we have made a conscious effort. I will tell you, we have not been as successful as we'd like to be. It also sometimes means that somebody that we want to join but doesn't meet our diversity requirements or desires. Sometimes we say, well, you know what, that person doesn't really fit. They don't fit what we're looking for, but God, they fit it in every other way. It's not always a comfortable thing. In fact, it's never a comfortable thing, but it's critical, because otherwise you're just operating in a little corner of the universe with people who look like you, sound like you, act like you, and you're smoking your own exhaust. What's the pusher's line? Don't get high on your own supply. That's what you're doing. That's
there
what you're
you
doing.
Go. Yeah, not that we serve up any marijuana or cannabis products at our meetings, but yes, no, you're absolutely.
It was a metaphor, Lisa.
It's a metaphor.
It was a metaphor. Yes.
Now, if we were in Colorado, we might be having a separate conversation. Oh, no, let's talk for a minute too about I'll share what I've learned around that. There are really 3 things that I ask people to look for, whatever group you join. Now, one of them is to watch for something you're touching on here, social versus substance. If these groups are touting that they go to cool places and, they're flying around on private jets, that's a fun social group. So don't confuse that with people who are there committed to helping each other be their best selves, because there are differences. Number 2, make sure you watch for vendors versus value. There is a group that is targeted for marketing professionals that recently got sold to a very, very large technology company. And they are known for some of the coolest social events ever. Are they known for helping people specifically accelerate revenue growth or get promoted faster or reduce team attrition or become stronger leaders? not on their website. You won't find any business results. It's all about, oh, we got this rock star to come and perform at our meeting. And, so make sure you really understand what you're investing in there. And the third is the difference between friendly and functioning. If none of you are familiar with the work in the mid-1960s from Bruce Tuckman of the different stages of group dynamics that start with the forming, norming, storming, and performing, I always tell people look forward to some conflict, because every group needs to go through conflict. They need to find ways to work together through difficult conversations. And sometimes those personality conflicts that happen among leaders and high performers. What have you seen, Bruce?
Well, I like what you said very much. I think it was your second point about watching out for vendors. I belong to a professional organization. I won't say which one it is, and it's become very, very useful and helpful to me. But what I learned was when I first joined, I was there for the classes. I was there for the courses. I was there for the learning. But over a few years, I developed friends there. I developed referral sources there. I did the networking things that I always do. And now I go to the meetings mostly because I want to see my friends, see the people that I associate with, see how we can help each other. But I've also noticed that there's a group of people in this organization that, as far as I can tell, are there simply to prey on what I call the wannabes. And I don't mean wannabe in a bad way. I mean, it's people who want to be much more successful in this specific industry silo. And so they join the organization, just like I did 22 years ago when I joined it. And these people are all about my workshop, my workbook, my mastermind group, my this, my that, but it's all about me paying you to be helpful. I don't think you want to be in those kind of organizations. I certainly, in the local chapter, which I'm also involved in, when I was in the board, I wouldn't allow those people to come make presentations because I think they just prey on people. And the old, those who can't do, teach. Those who can't do, teach. Those who can't teach sell stuff to people who want to do what they think the other people are doing. So I think there has to be a sense of we are doing this to help one another. One of the things that I think we always look for, it's really nice if you say to me, Lisa, I'm looking for XYZ. Bruce, I think you know someone. Can you help me? Sure. And I'd be delighted to. And as I said, you have to ask in order to get what you want. But it's even nicer when I send you a note. Lisa, I was talking to Alfred Schmeckelferritz, and I think you guys should know each other because Schmeckelferritz is looking for exactly what you do. When it's completely, totally unsolicited, it's unrequested. It's just that now I know you. You're in my immediate mindset, and yes. I want to be helpful to you. There's no charge. I don't want a commission. I don't want a percentage. I want to be completely agnostic. I want to say, look, I love Lisa Schmeckelferritz. I think you're a great guy. I'm putting you two together. I hope it works out. I'm out.
Exactly.
I'd love to hear you tell me it was the greatest thing ever, but if it doesn't work out, you don't need to report back to me.
Right.
But I want you guys to know each other. And I think
most definitely.
And that's what you want. So I love your point about no vendors or limited vendors or minimal vendors. You are not an ATM machine in these organizations. They are just to dispense money every time someone walks up to you. You were there to share those four things.
I don't know how this happened, but we're wrapping up because we had way too much fun today again. I know we've been enjoyed so many times together up here in the Washington area pre-COVID. So I'm really glad we were.
I haven't seen my son since before COVID. So my wife and I are coming up to see our boys. So I will let you know when we're in the hood.
I am expecting to hear from you because we're overdue for some dinner conversation for sure.
Agreed. And we'll see if Susan will join us as well.
I know. We'll have Susan fly up from South Carolina.
That's right.
And so as we wrap up, Bruce, we have put in here some information on how people can find you, as well as some more information about all of your books. So I want to say, first of all, thanks for being with us today and for also being a co-conspirator in building these powerful communities. It's really fun today to compare notes. And I know I have a few new things I can do with my CMO peer groups. And I learned a few things. Steph is going to let people know how they can learn more about your groups. And he's also going to share here how people can apply to our private, exclusive CMO and marketing leadership peer groups. So any wrap up comment before I transition here?
The only thing I think you have to have in mind to make this work is very simply just ask yourself, how can I be of service? What do I have that's valuable that could help other people accomplish what they want to accomplish? You get known for doing that. The rest of it just happens. Talk about pay it forward, or I'm not talking about have the karma thing. Hey, you call it whatever you want. The way I see it, it just attracts people because they're looking for what's in their best interest, but very quickly they figure out that there can be mutual interest. And so just make an inventory. Here's what I bring to the table. You called it superpowers. I call it unique qualifications. But here's what I bring to the table that can make people's lives better. And you'd be amazed at what happens.
So Bruce, thanks so much for being with us with those words of wisdom. We'll have you come back again and we'll compare notes about 3 to 6 months from now about what we both learned from these pandemic adventures and how our networks continue to thrive. My friends, we have made it through our fantastic live stream. Thanks to people like Bruce. I want you all to know that we've got more events coming up through the month and into June, not only with LinkedIn, but also through an upcoming session I'll be doing called the Digital CMO Series. So make sure you drop me a note if you're looking to recalibrate your marketing plan and your team to adapt to some of the new ways customers want to be treated, how they want to interact with you in this post-COVID world. We have some great lineups of speakers, and also I'll be leading some hands-on work sessions around this starting June 8th. Just drop me a note for details. And I also want to mention that if you're really excited about building your own professional network, go on over to my online course on a platform called Knowable. Knowable has my latest course on how you can build your own professional community. It's a 1.5 hour course. You can take it while you're walking on the trail or doing your workout, and it'll give you everything I've learned in 10 years in this online course. So my goal is to make sure you navigate through the pandemic, come out not only more profitable, more rich emotionally, but also financially, so you can do more good in the world. So with that, my friends, finally remember to join us next Friday when I am so excited to have Karen Eber join us and she's going to talk about how do we navigate and manage when we have toxic teams and transform them into productive, healthy teams. Her TED Talk is one of the most watched, and she has great experiences from having transformed a culture with 90,000 employees at GE. So she's got some great stories to share. So until then, enjoy your vaccinations. Thank you for getting vaccinated and stay mindful.